When you're in the woods or when you're out on the water, you become very in tune to your part of it. You embrace where you're at and you start moving throughout the woods, you become very quickly part of the woods. Then you realize that our people have been here. When you can start thinking really about where you're standing, there's not time that we don't know that we haven't been here, our ancestors haven't been here. So to me, we are part of this land. We're like the blood running through the veins of the trees and the streams. Like we are part of that.
This is Bear River. Mi'kmaq people call it Elsitcook, or water that cuts through high rocks. The reserve boundary here cuts people off from their ancestors' hunting and fishing grounds. But there are old canoe routes that leave from the reserve to cross the territory. And people here are working to reclaim them.
These skills that were hanging on by a thread, that was a whole way of life that evolved in different ways throughout the centuries, is now almost becoming a spiritual, if not physical, necessity. This is sort of a contemporary form of survival in the sense you're reconnecting back to life and trying to find ways to regenerate life as opposed to destroying life. If you're reconnecting with that, you have respect for that, you have respect for yourself. You're reconnecting with yourself.
We do wish you blessings, and we call on our ancestors, our spirit guides to be with you, and know that we'll be thinking about you and we'll be here to welcome you back. And can't wait to hear of your stories, and just blessings on you all.
It's such an honor to do this for a second time to be here. These are the descendants of our ancestors, and it's such an honor because I've always heard stories about the old people that used to do this canoe run, and here we are in 2015 and our people are doing it again.
All these places that the old elders used to go, they can still be utilized and keep that tradition alive, like pass it down when they get older, that this is where my grandfather taught me where to go, this is where my father taught me where to go, now I'm going to teach you where to go.
People within the community itself, there's an understanding that you hunt, you fish, and you do certain things certain times of the year. How do we get back to that to create our way of life again, like in today's society?
We were here and had this land and territory We're reversing the roles here and taking back what should be ours. If we had more lands, we'd be able to be who we really are. We'd be able to go fish when we wanted to, go hunt when we wanted to, not worry about being on different territorial lands. It's all one land to me, and that's of the Mi'kmaq.
Mi'kmaq people have been living here since time immemorial. My people are come from a ways, as we say here in Nova Scotia. But I've been coming to Elsipcook for more than 10 years now. I'm trying to learn what it means to be a good treaty partner. Sherry's asked me to come on this trip to bear witness, as people here reclaim a part of their land and a part of their history.
Okay, George, paddle, quite hard, paddle hard. And what it will do, it'll take the front of the canoe. When you paddle one side, it's going to take the front of the canoe to your right, see? Yeah.
The canoe route passes through all different levels. You're talking a reserve, we're talking about our land, then we're talking about Crown land, but then you're talking about Tobiatic Wilderness area, and then Kejimakujik. So these are all people that are going to have to be on board with this project because we are now going to be re-entering into our territory, and these boundaries won't really exist for us.
Where are we, Bub?
Lake Jolly.
You been here before?
No. It's one of the traditional canoe routes they used to take.
You used to come here when you were a kid?
Yeah, probably when I was like 7 or 8. Uncles used to bring me in, come to this river, and I couldn't get across, so one of my uncles was on the other side, and the other one chucked me across, and he caught me. I was just trying to get the youth back into knowing the different routes we used to take.
I used to hear the stories that they made this living by guiding. Well, what is that? And basically, it was sort of that transition time. And you got to remember, there was no right to vote, or there was all kinds of discriminatory legislation with the Indian Act and so forth. But because my people knew these woods so well, they would take like sports fishermen, and particularly from America, and they would earn at least a little bit of livelihood. That tradition died off, but I remember quite clearly through the 70s, 80s, the descendants of those guides still really very much use the land.
Really, yeah. Well, that's great. What do you have for milk?
I've been brought up and loved going down to the Mersey River with Fred Harlow. That was the main drag for me. And like these old canoe routes, these were the main drags, like the highway they used to use. Sometimes they'd be gone a week at a time, couldn't wait for them to get back. I can remember being young, always asking Fred, when you gonna take me, when you gonna take me? Whatever, it all depended on how good you was in the canoe. And if he wasn't no good in canoe, sat right where you're sitting, right in the middle. Learned. It was quite hard to pay attention, and he was so excited, and all he wanted was to fish. when it came to trouting, he wasn't long putting you in the middle of a boat and showing you this backcountry. I really think it was his goal too, knowing everything was getting forgotten.
Oh, stop. Stay still. Oh, okay, you're gone. What if one day we don't have any more grocery stores or anything else? You gotta be able to survive on your own. It means being in touch with the land, like knowing how to survive if you absolutely need to. If I need extra food on the table, then I can go out and provide for myself in a way, if need be.
This is right.
Royden's been here before, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Royden, don't you realize that we haven't seen the big rock yet?
It's right here.
It's up here.
They all would have had to travel this way every time they came in. It was right through here.
How long do you think it's been, Royden, since somebody's come up through that trail?
That trail?
The one we just...
Well, the last time that I remember going 10, 11 years ago.
Yeah, and we didn't really clean it out any. Wow, it's a nice fish. Don't lose it, bub.
We're going to eat good tonight.
Thanks for supper.
I'll be eating.
Yeah, and cut.
What's that?
Opal second trade.
Today.
You just started fishing. I can't fish, I got no gear. They might be doing it with more modern canoes or, but it's the same route. It's the same amount of work, I think, involved. And there's some reconnection there. Ancestors and my uncle's generation and even his father's generation would have used it a lot as guides. They would have harvested moose and deer, fish. They would have used it more for that. And now for us, it's more of a kind of like a reconnection to that.
We're just pulling in there, have a little lunch. Community members come back on the Irvin roads there to meet us there and have a little meet and greet.
Oh, yeah.
Who's good at cooking on fires?
It's been quite a while since I've been here. Right?
Yep.
I remember coming out and meeting my mother and father and them after a week in the woods. And of course you had to have food for them. Well, this was their way of life. Just out fishing, trapping, getting out in nature. And they love doing it. It's our freedom to be who you want to be. There's nothing more relaxing sitting by the river or whatever, and you're throwing a fishing rod in, and there's nothing in your mind at all. You don't think of nothing. You hear the water going, and you're in some heaven.
rather do this than work at Superstore.
Yeah, I would too.
We are part of the landscape. And I don't think I fully comprehended that until later in life, how we are part of this landscape. It's a balance between the human ecology and the natural ecology.
I love the land. Our people always lived on this land. And I feel that we could call it all reserve land. Like, you know, it's our home. It's all Mi'kmaq land. This is what our ancestors had done, and that's how they traveled. And there's something in us that always carries that thing of teaching the next generation. The Mi'kmaq teachings, their ancestral teachings, I don't know, it just seems something built inside of us, like, you know, it's something we have to do, is to keep our traditions and our culture alive.
We try to find ways in offices to how do we solve the problem of drugs and alcohol? How do we solve the problem with missing Aboriginal women? And how do we fix families? How do we create jobs and all this stuff? But when you're out there, all the answers are there. All the elements to the answers are there. When you actually see people like the Bubs and the Roydens and the Robbies, the different ones, out on the land working, you see them in a different light. You see them where they're supposed to be. Like you can see, this is something that's meant to be. They're supposed to be on the land. Their shoulders relax, their whole body relaxes when they're handing you something to eat.
Oh, put them in the bag so they don't get all...
Yeah, we'll fry them babies up here in a minute.
Person overhead.
I'll go in the fire.
Yeah. So you gotta go clean your two.
It's good to be able to step into them footprints that were there before us. Like for me, myself, it was being able to travel the routes that my uncles took, my grandfather. Both my grandfathers were guides. They guided Americans for years. There was no limit. It wasn't just a reserve. They didn't just live on reserves. Everything around us was used. You know, the land, hunting, fishing, you know, berry picking, anything. You know, it wasn't just on reserve.
Yeah. Reminds me of Cape Breton.
We can move past our boundary, and you know, it's our woods, it's our land. We grew up on it. We should be able to share it. It's nice to be able to share that with my godson. So, you know, he's only 13 years old, but he needs to know some of this stuff.
Good one.
Where'd you learn to fish, Kirk?
From Freddie
from my grandparents, from my stepdad, from my dad, everyone. Everyone knew how to fish that I knew taught me how to fish. An ongoing process ever since then. I know a lot, but I can still be taught some things about this place.
So what rights does the government recognize Bear River First Nation as having in relation to this territory now?
I don't view things that way. Do you know what I mean? Those questions belong in the legal, political, policy-driven world, where my version of the project is and will be always in the spiritual, ancestral world. And we don't recognize those words.
Easy with that hook.
I think, Caroline, if I'm hearing you right, what you're saying is that this is the Mi'kmaq, Bear River, or Elsipog's vision, and everyone else had to kind of get on board.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
It's basically, instead of where do we fit in their world, it's
like
where do you fit in mine?
Yeah, exactly. Here's a true treaty partnership that perhaps we've been waiting for 250 years. The spirit and the intent back in those times was, you leave us unmolested. You let us hunt and fish. You let us provide for ourselves. And no one's ever honored those treaties. This, I think I'm finally getting it, it's just happening as we're having this conversation, is that this is a demonstration of the true intent and spirit of those treaties in terms of what Caroline is saying. You get all the government, you get private landowners, you have all of this collaborative effort, and without probably even realizing it, it's probably more true to the spirit and intent of those treaties than anything else.
Look at us now. We just did a 4-day fishing trip from Lake Jolly to Lake Franklin, big loop, all the way to 3rd Daniels, all the way around. All them stories that I've heard were the main Six Lake Stream was a big time fishing story place that I've always heard about. If you don't teach it or try to show, it's going to be gone. These places are just going to be still waters then. There ain't going to be no stories coming from them.
So coming back and using the land and using it properly, it puts us back into it. And then it's like we're healing. Not only are we healing the land, but we are healing ourselves.
People in Elsipog are on a journey of discovery. They're reconnecting with the land and its stories, and they're doing it on their own terms. I see that as an act of sovereignty. My journey is different. I'm learning to see the place I grew up as Mi'kmaq territory, and my place here as a settler and as a guest. This land has laws I'm bound to through treaty. people in Elsipcook are showing me how to listen and how to learn.
It's not about reclaiming a canoe route, it's probably more about renewal. Because reclaiming something, you're getting into those modes of property ownership, and you don't own the land, you belong to the land. They're able to go on these canoe routes where ancestors went before them. I think there's something powerful in rejuvenating that connection with the land and rejuvenating those spirits. And it just kind of puts things into perspective that we have to be a little more responsible of where we're going.